This is an all-day live alert.
Got the Capitol hat on right now. All right, we are going to rock and roll. I call the St. Paul City Council to order. Roll call.
Prince.
Here.
Tolbert.
Here.
Yang. Here. Ballinger. Jalali.
Here.
Naker.
Here.
Council President Brenmoen.
Here.
6 present, 1 absent, being Councilmember Ballinger, and he is excused.
If you would like and are able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda items 4 through 14 are before you for your consideration.
We are taking item 4 separately. We are taking item 11 separately. Is there anything else that we should pull from consent for separate consideration? All right, seeing none, Ms. Naker moves the ballots. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The consent agenda is adopted as amended. Item 4 is Resolution 23-1323, appointing Jay Willems as Chief Budget Officer for City Council.
All right. We haven't sworn in people for a while. Do we usually vote first, swear in? Yeah, it seems like it would make sense. We should vote for this item, and then we'll do a swearing in if it passes. There's a motion from Mr. Tolbert to appoint Jay Willems as Chief Budget Officer for the City Council. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted.
All right, our City Clerk, Sherry Moore, will read the oath of office, and we'll get Mr. Willems sworn in. And then we'll be in business for our City Council budget.
All right, will you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Jay Willems,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the constitutions
to support the constitutions
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota,
and of the state of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully
and to discharge faithfully
the duties devolving upon me
the duties devolving upon me
as Chief Budget Officer
as Chief Budget Officer
of the City of St. Paul
of the City of St. Paul
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
I know that you've already stepped in quite nicely in working on our budget, but usually when someone gets sworn in, we at least offer them the mic if there's anything they'd like to add as they start this journey with the City Council and with the City of St. Paul.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I'm really excited for the opportunity to work with you all and serve the residents of St. Paul. I was born in St. Paul, and although I've never lived in St. Paul, I've spent a lot of time here, and it's always felt kind of like home. And so I'm really looking forward to working with you all, and thanks again.
Wonderful. Well, we've been delighted thus far. Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Item 11 is Resolution 1384, authorizing the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Police Aspire Unit to jointly apply for future federal and state public safety enhancement grants to further their common mission, and without needing individual pre-approval from City Council of each individual grant application when the grant applied for does not have city grant obligations of providing matching funds, spending requirements, or hiring or retention requirements beyond grant funding periods.
Ms. Naker.
Thanks, Council President. I'd like to move a 2-week layover of this item. I think it's important for the Office of Financial Services to have a chance to speak with the Office of Neighborhood Safety and the Police Department about this proposal before we would issue this pre-approval to apply for grants. And it sounds like they haven't had a chance to do that yet.
Great. I appreciate the time for further look at this, and we'll share that we do know that there is an obligation on grants if there are tails as identified here, that they have to come for council for pre-approval, and also many grants do require a council approval even for applications. So really getting an understanding of what is the world outside of that realm would be helpful for us to know. So I support your motion. Any further discussion on the motion from Ms. Naker for a 2-week layover? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is laid over to September 27th. Item 15 is Resolution 23-1299, supplementing the general resolution relating to sewer revenue bonds and providing for the issuance of sewer revenue bonds, Series 2023E, and taking other required actions.
All right, Neil Youngins is here to share some news, and we'll modify this resolution so that we can pass it in its final form.
Council President Brenmo and council members, my name is Neil Younghans, and I'm the debt manager in OFS Treasury. Earlier this morning, in a competitive sale, the city sold one series of sewer revenue bonds, Series 2023E green bonds. The bonds will fund approximately $8 million in sewer projects. Earlier this month, S&P reaffirmed the sewer's AAA rating with a stable outlook. They cited the sewer system's stable and predictable financial performance, coupled with the service area's sound economic fundamentals and competitive market position. They also cited the city's established and comprehensive practices and policies and a demonstrated willingness to pre-approve multi-year rate increases to support operating and financial performance, which help mitigate governance risk. For today's sale, we received 3 bids. The winner was Robert W. Baird and Company, receiving the winning bid. The true interest rate cost was about 3.96% for the 20-year term. I want to thank our partners at Baker Tilly and Ballard Spar and the Public Works Department, as well as our team at OFS. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
All right, are there questions for our debt manager? Sounds like there's no question. So is there a version 2 that we'll just amend in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we'll be looking at version 2 and just not reiterating everything you said, but when you come and share to us that we've reaffirmed our AAA, that a stable outlook, 3 bids is great. And this 20-year at 3.96 is wonderful in this economy. And so we really appreciate these updates. Always, it's nice that you have to amend it when you come in, because I'm going to kind of force you to share the good news with us. So thank you for that. And thanks to your team for the hard work. I will move version 2. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted as amended. Item 16 is Resolution 23-1334, approving adverse action against a second-hand dealer motor vehicle parts and auto repair garage licenses held by Castillo Auto Repair, doing business as Castillo Auto Repair, for the premises located at 744 3rd Street East.
All right, and this item, we did hear from the licensee last week and concluded that conversation, and Ms. Prince requested a 1-week layover. Ms. Prince?
Yeah, thank you, Council President Brenmon. The record shows that there has been no improvement in the myriad license violations that have been occurring on the premises over a period of the last couple of years. It's a tough penalty to invoke, but I will move the recommendation of the city attorney for the 3rd level of the matrix penalty.
All right, thank you. And I felt on this item, I'll support your motion. I felt on this item, the photographs that accompanied the complaint were very compelling, so I appreciate the additional week to get the details. I support the motion. Any other discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion prevails.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted. Item 17 is Resolution Public Hearing 23-268, authorizing the city on behalf of the police department to accept and amend the special fund for $149,635.10 in funds from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety for the 2024 NHTSA DWI Traffic Safety Officer Grant Program. The public hearing was closed on September 6th.
All right, and still seeking a little bit more follow-up information, Ms. Jalali moves a further 1-week layover. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is laid over to September 20th. Item 18 is Resolution Public Hearing 23-269, authorizing the city on behalf of the police department to accept and amend the special fund for $309,000 in funds from the Minnesota Department of Commerce Auto Theft Prevention Grants Program. Public hearing was closed on September 6th.
And again, still seeking a bit of follow-up information. Ms. Yang moves a 1-week layover. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
6 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is laid over to September 20th. Item 19 is a public hearing of ordinance 23-40, amending Title 23, Public Health, Safety, and Welfare of the Legislative Code to add Chapter 222, titled Smoking of Tobacco, Hemp, and Cannabis Products in City-Owned Public Places Prohibited.
And just a quick moment of level setting. In the city of St. Paul, our requirement is that we read ordinances 3 times. The first time is usually accompanies with a staff report, so we get the lay of the land on what is coming before us. The second time we hold a public hearing, and the ordinance needs to lay in its final form for 1 week, so we have a 3rd reading. There is no first readings or final readings today. We just have 2 ordinances that are before us for public hearing. I will say that on item number 23-40, with the smoking conversation, we are expecting an amended version today, which means we will have amendments come in before us. We will have a second public hearing where we'll ask people who haven't spoken before to come before us for thoughts as a priority. If you have something new to share, that's fine, but we had a public hearing last week and heard first round on this.
This is an all-day live alert.
This is a Fox 9 all-day live alert. I'm Kelsey Carlson. You've been watching the St. Paul City Council meeting, and pretty soon the council is going to discuss an ordinance that would ban smoking marijuana, tobacco, and vaping in city-controlled spaces. Today, council members are looking to better define those spaces, along with hearing from residents in the community. So let's take a listen live.
Hearing and reading. So that is what is before us today. The second public hearing ordinance is on York Avenue. So we'll start with 2340 as just read by Ms. Moore. And I will look to Mr. Tolbert for, I think what our intention is to get this in final shape before the public hearing. Mr. Tolbert.
Yeah. I'm going to ask my colleagues to move version 2. What we've done over the past week is tried to take some of the different amendments and different feedback that we've gotten from this table, as well as public comment, and incorporate it into the version 2 that I'll be moving here today. And just for a high-level overview, and it's in Legistar for anybody who wants to read it themselves.
And Mr. Tolbert, just a quick, it's listed in Legistar as Tolbert Amendment number 2.
Okay, excuse me.
Yep.
Tolbert Amendment 2 is what I'll be moving. And just high level, a few changes that we have. One, we took out any mention of cannabis or tobacco and just solely focused it on smoking. One, that's the underlying purpose of this ordinance in the first place. And number two, in recognition of the disconnect between federal law and state law regarding the use of cannabis or marijuana and the immigration effects that it would have on folks. We took out any mention of the cannabis or tobacco. Obviously, if you're smoking something that's, well, other things that are already illegal, that's a different conversation. But in terms of smoking, that's what this ordinance would be reflecting to. Secondly, we have incorporated in here that the first request is for voluntary compliance. The second would be if voluntary compliance doesn't work, a petty misdemeanor fine would be second. Councilmember Jalali is going to bring an amendment, which I will accept as a friendly amendment regarding administrative fines. So that's not in the draft version 2. That will be brought by Councilmember Jalali. And then it also more clearly states it's not allowed in, smoking is not allowed in parks. It's not allowed 25 feet from places of employment. However, it gives designation for both the parks director and employers to designate and sign specific smoking areas so that if an employer or the parks director so chooses to designate where people should smoke, it will be in there. I think this gets it in better shape. I do think just a couple comments. One, you know, and I know some of this is just fundamental disagreement, but I think people do have a right to smoke. They have a right to smoke cigarettes right now. They have a right to smoke cannabis. But in my opinion, you know, you're welcome to use that right, but you can't allow you don't get to choose that other people also have to smoke around you. As Public Health Director Sarah Holly wrote, and it's in the public record, with the exception of nicotine, the secondhand effects of cannabis and tobacco are the same in terms of for secondhand smoke, and it's not healthy for folks. Secondly, we do regulate, as we should, many intoxicants. Right now, it's not legal to drink a beer in a park, except in certain circumstances or certain spots. I think it makes sense for us to regulate in this area as well. And lastly, and this is probably something that many people will disagree with, but it's my personal opinion, is I think it's okay that we make smoking inconvenient. And I think that's the underlying debate that we're having right now is, should we make smoking very convenient or should we make it inconvenient? I'm okay making it inconvenient. There are people in the city still working here who worked at the city when they could sit, where I could sit in this seat and have a cigarette right now. At a certain point, we decided that we weren't going to allow smoking in our places of employment, and they had to walk outside, and it made it more convenient or inconvenient. Eventually, many places like Ramsey County said, you can't smoke within 25 feet of a building. And I can tell you, as a former smoker, the more inconvenient it made it for me, the less cigarettes I smoked every day. If I could sit at my desk and smoke, that's a different conversation than having to walk outside and have a cigarette. And I think that's okay. I think that's the way our society is going. We know the devastating effects of secondhand smoke, and we know the devastating effects of firsthand smoke. So that's the amendment right now. I will be open for some of the amendments that others have to offer in the public hearing.
All right, I think kind of echoing what Ms. Ying said last week, just in order to keep this simple, if it would be all right, let's move up toward Amendment 2. And then if there are changes we'd like to make to that, because I know you've worked to try to find sort of where the common ground is on the council, and then if there's adjustments, we can amend it and then vote on a final form. So there's a motion from Mr. Tolbert for Tolbert Amendment 2, which is in the public record. Any discussion on the proposed changes in Amendment 2? Ms. Jalali.
If I have a friendly amendment around the penalty, do I bring that now?
I think it'd be easier. Let's pass one and then bring that amendment.
All right, I actually have two to bring, so let's do yours and then mine. So,
thank you. So we will, if there are any other discussion on Tolbert Amendment 2, if there's none, All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we're just looking at version 2 right now, and Ms. Jalali has 1 or 2 amendments. Ms. Jalali.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone who is here again, and to my colleagues around the table who've been in these conversations. I recognize we're looking at a different version now. It still contains a lot of concerns I have. I have some amendments to address that. I want to start by just saying I think that we are actually undertaking a pretty serious policy expansion here, because if you're starting with just our parks rules and regulations, it already really clearly says where you can't smoke. And what is now being proposed significantly expands that. And it's doing that in the name of, quote unquote, making smoking inconvenient. And what I'm really asking for in this discussion is that we have nuance in this policy conversation. We heard from so many people last week and throughout the course of public hearing that there are many, many, many individuals who have the ability now to use marijuana legally, who make smart choices in any type of space to not inconvenience other people, who aren't thoughtlessly and selfishly doing that, who have also needs to be able to use it. We had a veteran come last week and talk about his experience with PTSD and how he uses and needs medical marijuana to function. We know that there are people who are using it from a harm reduction standpoint to recover from a more extreme substance, and they're transitioning from addiction. This is the difference to me in including all of the many, many, many broad public spaces. I think that we could agree on youth activity areas only, and places that are entirely youth-centered as being areas that we could agree on to uphold our existing regulations and simply add in like cannabis smoke. But what we're contemplating today goes beyond what's already in the rules, and it's doing that without going through the Parks Commission. It's doing that without going through an extensive community input process. And, you know, one of our council members was supposed to be here today and isn't here now, and so his voice isn't at the table. Like, there's all these points along the way where we need more chances to talk about this thoughtfully and hold the nuance that there should be wide open public spaces, like many of our parks, where the current rules haven't created any problems, and they should stay the same without going backwards on cannabis policy that was historic and leading the nation. So just having said that, I want to just offer some actual amendments here. I'll just start with the one that I've talked through with Councilmember Told already and that I appreciate. There's an issue with the way that this is currently written, in that it creates a petty it essentially says there will be a petty misdemeanor penalty. I have an amendment. It's in Legistar. It's been in there for, I think, over a week now. It basically makes an amendment that says enforcement is now to be clarified that first, violation of this chapter will be enforced through education and requesting voluntary compliance. So we're not going to be directing police to our parks to look for people smoking marijuana. What's going to happen instead is any city employee who's responsible for those rules can ask somebody, and is preferred and directed to ask somebody, hey, you can't do that here, please don't do that. That's what that means in everyday terms. You will be reminded of those requirements and asked to stop using that. After that request, it then says any person authorized to issue administrative citations for the violation of the law, and they can then administer that. I want to say administrative citations are a tool that our city needs to create to be able to use. I am still bringing that language because it's important, and it is a better interim step than a whole petty misdemeanor. It is still not eliminating the risk of a petty misdemeanor, and I want to be clear and transparent about that. Under the law, you can still get a petty misdemeanor. That is not my ideal, but this does reduce the risk of that, and it just eases and makes it less harmful on the whole. So that language is there. I don't need to read it word for word. It's there for people, but I'm going to move that as a friendly amendment if Councilmember Tolbert will at least accept that, and I welcome discussion on that point.
So
I will.
Mr. Tolbert
Takes that as a friendly amendment. So it's Jalali amendment number 2. So who's the friendly amendment? Do we need to vote? Yeah. All right. So is there any discussion on the motion from Ms. Jalali? Ms. Dinker.
Thanks, Council President. I will be supporting this motion. I really appreciate Mr. Jalali bringing it forward. The goal here is not to over-police or over-criminalize, and I think that that's what this accomplishes. I also appreciate the fact that this puts another time in writing the fact that administrative citations are a useful tool, and they are a tool that our city needs, and I look forward to working with my colleagues, hopefully, to move that tool forward in the coming years.
And Ms. Prince?
At the present time, we don't have administrative citations. So I think it's premature to put that into an ordinance until it becomes part of the charter. So I'm going to be voting against it.
All right. Any other, Ms. Yang?
Thanks, Council President. I want to share that I'm really supportive of this, so thank you, Councilmember Jalali, for bringing it forward. And to my knowledge, we do have administrative citations in other ordinances also. For example, the $15 minimum wage. We need to get this done as soon as possible in St. Paul. That way, for policies that already have this inserted, we can just really make sure that this is enforced right away for all of those really important policies across our city. So, yeah, I'll be supporting this.
Great. As will I. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, being Councilmember Prince. The amendment is approved.
Ms. Jalali?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And then this second amendment is meant to actually bring this conversation back to the scope that I think is appropriate at this time without any additional engagement, which is that we're starting with this amendment with what's already in the rules. Already in the rules, in the parks rules and regulations, under Chapter 3, Section 4, use of alcohol and tobacco, there's language that says the use of tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, is prohibited in, and this is the operative term here, that is what the point of my amendment is, youth activity areas, including playing areas, playing athletic fields, spectator viewing areas, parent supervisor resting areas. So that narrows what's being proposed to conform to what's already in the rules. It matches the types of smoke, which I've been told from the beginning is what the point of all this was, and it will not create a major policy expansion that can create a lot of issues when you think about all the other different types of people in those spaces and the way that we know people of color are policed as they go about public life in actuality. Whether the policy says one thing or not, we know that there's an additional dimension to how people experience the policy in the real world. So my next amendment is to actually only restrict, or have the new restriction apply to youth activity areas, and it literally mirrors the language in the parks regs. It says youth activity areas, meaning city-controlled playgrounds, athletic fields, spectator viewing areas, and parent supervisor resting areas. This would be my next amendment, and I welcome any discussion from my colleagues. Thank you for considering it.
All right, any discussion on this motion from Ms. Jalali? Ms. Yang and then Ms. Naker?
Thank you. I am supporting this amendment, and I'm really grateful to all of the people who came and testified last week, especially our legislators who have been at the front lines of moving legislation around legalization of cannabis at the state. I think it's something that really stuck out to me is just how diverse it was last week with the people that we saw coming. Like some of them are folks who we have seen for the first time, and this is something that they cared deeply about and came to share with us on. And I feel like this really is middle ground for what we've been hearing from a lot of folks around restrictions or even like places that they want to be able to smoke. I think for me, what's really important is making sure that we continue to really protect our spaces where we do have our little kids playing and our youths. And this is language that really captures that. I feel like the amendment, the entire amendment the first one we passed as a whole, just already goes too far into restrictions. And so this is something that I feel, again, is like middle ground for what I would want to see in our ordinance.
Ms. Naker?
Thanks, Council President. I will be voting against this amendment. I recognize that we're expanding beyond what the current park rules state, and I think that we should expand beyond them. This is about secondhand smoke, and secondhand smoke isn't just dangerous on a playground. It's dangerous on a trail, it's dangerous at a beach, on a bikeway, and in the big open green spaces that so many of our residents and families use, and I think deserve to use smoke-free. So I will be voting against this and supporting the original concept, which is to have this ban apply to all park spaces.
Any other discussion on the motion? Ms. Prince?
I am not going to support the amendment. I will say that as someone who participates every year in the parks cleanup, that cigarette trash is all over the place. And I think it would just be nice to be definite about that impact on the beauty of our parks and the difficulty in keeping them clean and enjoyable.
Great. Other discussion? Mr. Tolbert.
I'll just say I appreciate the amendment. I'm not going to support it, but I appreciate the amendment. I think it is a policy decision that we should make on where to limit that. I do think it's important that we as policymakers make this decision and not rely on just rules coming out of departments. Granted, I know there's a Parks Commission with parks, but I think we should make this decision. I think overall, if the Parks Director wants to designate certain areas to allow smoking, that authority lies within this, within the ordinance in its current state, and I would support going that route rather than trying to identify the areas. And also, I will say, I think we have gotten a lot of feedback that it's not, obviously, kids should be the first people that we're thinking about, but I've heard a lot of feedback of others who just want to enjoy the park space with clean air. And I will just cite Sarah Holly, who's the Ramsey County Public Health Director, wrote a letter talking about the Ramsey County Smoking and Commercial Tobacco Use Ordinance, which does prohibit smoking in all parks and recreation areas, all bodies of water, walkways, paths, and trails. And they came to this conclusion and specifically talked about, you know, there are people who don't necessarily have in their own backyard a place to smoke, but there are also people who don't have backyards that don't have green space, and clean air, green space, as we heard from testimony last week, I think is a really important place for all people. So I think the current ordinance specifically saying that smoking is not allowed in parks, with the opportunity for the Parks Director to designate certain areas either for short periods of time or for longer periods of time, I think is a better route to go.
Right, thank you, and I would not be supporting this either. And as you pointed out, Mr. Tolbert, the new version that's before us allows the designation of certain areas by the Parks Director, and that conversation, to Ms. Jalali's point, can go back to the Parks Commission and to the public. But I'm interested and very keen on continuing to move forward in a progressive manner, which is what we've been doing for decades, to create a clean air city and a smoke-free city. So I will be not voting for this, but I do appreciate the concerns expressed by Ms. Jalali. Ms. Jalali.
I disagree that it is regressive to change our rules in the name of smoke and not think about all of the complexities of the racial justice policy passed by the legislature and keeping those public spaces thoughtfully used. I would be very supportive of keeping the status quo, which is actually not yielding any problems and not creating additional consequences with what this language poses. So I recognize the desire for public health. I think that we have to balance that with people's other public health concerns, which include their ability to use a substance that is a part of their health, and then the additional harms that are created under the way that racial bias plays out in our public spaces and how that creates harms on people too. So people have made their points, but I think it's really important that we not just reduce this conversation to smoke and public health. It's more complex than that. It is about the shared use of public spaces in a thoughtful way that looks forward to the gains that were passed by our legislature. So with that, you know, we can vote. I'm not hearing support, but I care very much about this point being made and not brushed under the rug. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate that. The legislature gave local municipalities control. And I think that was intentional, and every city's different. So there's a motion from Ms. Jalali in front of us. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No. 2 in favor, 4 opposed, being Council Members Prince, Tolbert, Naker, and Council President Brenmoen. The amendment fails.
All right, are there any other amendments that we should look at before we go to public hearing V 2.0? Okay, all right, so what's in front of us now is a modified version of the ordinance. We've taken out any reference to any type of smoke like tobacco, hemp, pipe, cigar. It just says smoking. We have authorized our Parks Director to designate particular areas and employers to designate particular areas of smoking. We have softened the penalties to voluntary compliance and, with a little luck in the future, administrative fines. And I think that summarizes the changes. All right, so that is what's in front of us right now. And just a reminder, we'll have a public hearing. Folks will be invited to speak for up to 2 minutes. I will also share that I'll put a hand up when you have about 10 seconds left. I'm not trying to be rude, but just to let you know, so folks, I'll get about the equal amount of time to speak. If you see my hand up, please wrap up your comments. And again, we won't vote this week, so it's a little anticlimactic because we'll hear testimony and then lay it over. But we should, this is in what sounds like its final form, and we should see a vote next week. So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? And I just remind people that if you spoke last week, we heard you, and keep your remarks maybe to the changes that are in front of us as opposed to repeating what you said last week. Or give space for others. And actually, if you could just go ahead and testify and then sign up when you're done, that would be great.
Sorry, first time here.
Right.
Good afternoon, St. Paul City Council members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is David Holloway. I'm a disabled veteran, a medical cannabis patient, and a cannabis advocate. This ordinance is completely counter to HF 100 and the spirit of it, which was social justice and equity. This ordinance, as you have laid out, it's no good for that. It's going to result in people dying, actually, through unexpected confrontations with the police. I will have you remember to May 2020, there was a man named George Floyd that tried to go to a store called Cup Foods and pay with a $20 bill, a real $20 bill. The police were called on him. He did not commit a crime, and he was killed. And now you're going to try to expose more people to police violence, the state's monopoly on violence. And for what? So some NIMBYs can't have a little smoke near them? Maybe you guys should really look at a better policy, which is the city of West St. Paul. It's very plain, very well laid out, quite a bit like these council members over here, Yang and Jali, were looking for. But as it stands, the fine's what, 200 bucks? What if someone can't make rent after that? What if they can't feed their kids after that? Like, then they're on the street. What, they can't make their car payment. They can't fill up with gas. Maybe they can't make the payment. What are the second and third order effects of these policies you're making? They are gonna disproportionately affect the poor, renter, or black and brown communities that are over-policed. And I feel like you guys are from such a privilege that you've never had unfortunate encounters with police or police that don't like what you're doing, even if it's legal. I have. It's not fun. I see that. So in short, if you pass this legislation as written, you will have blood on your hands at some point.
And because we did amend this, I will reiterate that the penalty, the petty misdemeanor, is removed from the final version, and it's voluntary compliance.
But then the second option.
That's just to clarify, because it was changed.
Okay, but the second would be a petty misdemeanor, correct?
That's removed.
Okay.
So there's no penalty, so we can do whatever we want.
It's voluntary compliance.
Okay, hello again, you guys. My name is Kayla Fearing. I was here last week, and I was hoping I would not have to come back and testify again after emailing you all last week, but I did not get a response from a single city council member. My name again, I was a pulmonary patient back in August of 2019. I am a BOOP survivor, for anyone who is familiar with pulmonary health sciences. BOOP is a condition in which your lungs think the rest of your body is attacking itself, so your lungs can cocoon themselves and pretty much kill off the rest of your body. I was in United Hospital for 3 weeks with a fever of 103, and my body was shutting down. At that time, if any of you are news followers, it was also the summer of vape lung caused by tobacco vapes. Right now, I have the lungs of a 70-year-old woman as a 33-year-old, and I am also an open medical cannabis user. I'm a medical cannabis patient with a state prescription. I learned the differences between tobacco smoke and cannabis smoke while I was dying in United Hospital from my pulmonary team. And it seems like a lot of you are still referring outdated studies or using tobacco studies to justify your feelings on cannabis. A study published in the Harvard School of Medicine done by the Journal of American Medical Association in 2012, so over 10 years ago, showed that smoking cannabis in moderation may actually improve lung function due to cannabis connecting with the endocannabinoid system and opening up the bronchial airwaves, and inhaling gives the lungs and the chest muscles a workout. Councilmember Tolbert, you made the comment earlier that you want smoking to be an inconvenience for people. Smoking for me, however, is the quickest form of medical relief on my lung condition. If you guys aren't familiar with cannabis use as a medicine, every form of cannabis results in a different relief form of your body because of the endocannabinoid system. Smoking is the quickest form of relief. That's why seizure patients smoke cannabis. Second, a most recent study that I emailed to all of you city councils last week, city council members, showed that in May of 2023, cannabis smoke does not carry the same risks associated with tobacco secondhand smoke in a UCLA study, nor is cannabis associated with an increase of COPD. It's frustrating that we're eliminating safe spaces for me to use my medicine, but we're creating safe spaces for hard drug users, one of them being my ex-best friend who died from buying fentanyl in Mears Park last April. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kayla, we did get your email, and it is part of the public record, so thank you for reaching out.
But I would have loved a response from all of you to, educate you more on this, since I do work in healthcare, and this is what my whole company is around, is healthcare science is based on cannabis. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Susan Larson. I am the co-chair of the Friends of Mears Park. And I come to you as a CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder individual. I've been diagnosed, and I also smoke cannabis to help relieve my symptoms. However, I do not believe that it belongs in the parks at all. As a person who holds 2 community cleanups every other week, the number of cigarette butts that we pick up is horrendous. I have worked in the park as a gardener, laying mulch, cleaning, and I have had people smoking cannabis in front of me, and it makes me extremely uncomfortable. I'm a user, so it has nothing to do, I'm very glad that they legalized it. It, to me, does not belong in the parks. Cigarette smoking does not belong in the parks. There are children in Mears Park often. There's no playground. Parents bring their kids there to enjoy the beautiful gardens that we work extremely hard to bring to all of you for your enjoyment. I don't feel that I need to be, or my gardeners need to be subject to that. And the sheer uncleanliness of the butts on the fentanyl is unbelievable, the use. And I think that this is my take on it. I think people feel very entitled to smoke cigarettes, smoke cannabis, and therefore fentanyl is not a leap. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your service to St. Paul. The park is beautiful. I remember old Mears Park back in the day. When you come down to the farmers market or just go through St. Paul, it is a gem, and I'm recognizing the work it takes to get that way. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you. Yeah, you should be. It's an asset. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Chris, and I want to approach this as more of like you make more friends with honey than anything else. And so I agree with the first speaker. I don't want to come across as so fiery about it though. I just think anytime you add police interactions, it just doesn't go well unless, I think you should only make it for the things that are absolutely necessary. Just thinking about that almost brings me to tears, like thinking about somebody being murdered over a $20 bill. So I don't want to see anybody killed over cannabis. It's a medicine. Our state recognizes that. I think that's all that needs to be said about that. It is literally medicine. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Curtis. And did you sign in?
Thank you.
Just a reminder to folks, just let us know your name and also where you live when you start your testimony.
Sure. Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Emily Anderson, and I'm the Director of Policy at the Association for Non-Smokers Minnesota. We're located at 2395 University Avenue in St. Paul. And I'm here today to testify in support of making all St. Paul parks smoke-free. I've worked on smoke and commercial tobacco-free parks policies for nearly 15 years. I've supported dozens of the more than 180 communities across Minnesota that have adopted commercial tobacco-free parks policies in that time span. One of the biggest takeaways from my work is that comprehensive policies that cover all park areas at all times for all people work best. A youth activity areas policy, such as the one that you discussed in a previous amendment, is confusing both to park goers and park staff. It's difficult, if not impossible, to determine boundaries between playgrounds, sports fields, and other park areas, leaving both patrons and staff confused about where people should and should not be smoking or vaping. Further, this type of policy does not protect all park goers from the harmful effects of secondhand smoke or the environment from cigarette and other smoking-related litter. As is articulated in one of the whereas statements of the proposed ordinance, St. Paul has a vested interest to promote, protect, and improve the health of people, communities, and the environment. A smoke-free policy that only applies to some park amenities only promotes, protects, and improves health for some people, communities, and the environment, some of the time. It is a fragmented approach that is likely to leave vulnerable, underserved communities behind. I urge you to protect all St. Paul residents by adopting a comprehensive smoke-free parks ordinance. It will bring the 2003 smoke-free policy that is currently in place up to 2023 standards. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Curtis Knapp. I'm a St. Paul resident, Ward 7. I live close to Mounds Park. Love it. I'm speaking today in support of keeping parks safe, clean, and substance-free. Growing up, substance abuse in my home made it unsafe. The park was my safe place, my escape. Being active at the park was my therapy. I wanted to go where people weren't using, and if people were using in the park, I'd leave. It made me uncomfortable. And even though I don't have a safe place to go to at home, I had to leave. And I'm not alone. I know kids in Minnesota are facing this same situation today, and even more lethal substances, as was mentioned. Like many people who have experienced trauma, I've struggled with substance abuse. Avoiding substances is a daily battle for people. People are using it everywhere. So substance-free public spaces are vital to a safe, healthy community. So please keep the park substance-free, and please do that in a way that utilizes compassion and enforcement that is equitable. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, members of the council, President Brendmoen. I'm Jeannie Weigum. I live at 1647 Laurel, which is Ward 4. I support protecting all people from secondhand smoke, vaping, and hope you will adopt the proposal that is before you. You are not being asked to do something that is unique nor pioneering. The Association for Non-Smokers, where I volunteer, tracks city agendas. And there are now 40 communities in the metro area that have already adopted these types of policies. Some are still working on them, and this very week, this issue is coming up in Mounds View, Falcon Heights, and White Bear Lake. Those who have told you, take your time, you've got to get this exactly right, because St. Paul's so big, people will follow you. Well, that ship has sailed, my friends. It's tough to follow somebody in the middle of the pack. Colorado, I think, led the way on recreational cannabis use, and they prohibit smoking in public places. This is not an exotic policy we're asking you to adopt. This is middle of the road, and we thank you for it. Some people have suggested that because 4 of you will be leaving this council, you should just wait. Let others do the heavy lifting. Leave the field to them. Long ago, when I was younger and probably dumber, I was a triathlete. And during grueling races, 2 things kept me going. Saying to myself, run your own race and run across the finish line. I encourage you to do the same thing. Run your own race and run across the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Council President Brendmoen and a member of the Council. My name is Gamera Magarsa, and I live at 4080 Randolph Avenue. I am a proud father of 2 children. We are regular users of parks. We go there regularly, and we want them to be safe and not a place where they are exposed to either smoke or drug. It's now illegal in Minnesota to use cannabis, but it is not what I meant my children to be around. I don't take my children to bars because it is not the kind of atmosphere that it is what I mean to be around. I am to be able to take my children to city parks and not feel like I have to be concerned about what others are doing. I know some people want to be able to smoke in the parks, but they were built for all of us to use for family activities, to play and share foods. Allowing smoking in parks will change them in ways that are not positive. We have well cared for the beautiful parks here, and they are places we all can safely use. I ask that you keep our parks safe and clean and welcoming, and that you support their being smoke-free. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, stranger. Welcome, Mr.
I can't help
Thune.
myself. I have to give directions.
If you didn't see that, Mr. Thune was making sure he signed in on the clipboards on the sides. That was very helpful. So thank you and welcome.
My name is Dave Thune. I know you all well. And I think, I want to commend you on, I think, your careful, slightly conservative path in dealing with the newfound right to smoke cannabis. Most of you know that I am a child of the 60s, an old hippie that grew up but still fondly enjoy rock and roll, and happily now some of my other vices from the good old days. I've long been a supporter of legalizing cannabis. I think it's a good thing, and it's going to be good for the community as a whole. But I was the author of the tobacco smoke-free ordinance, a number of years ago, and I do recall that there were death threats, violent opposition, accusations of patchwork, putting together of the laws and things. I can go back to most of the restaurants and bars in town now, even though I was banned from a number of them at the time. And I've got lots of stories I can tell you about that. But I do want to, again, commend you, because I think you're thinking about the impact that this has on everyone. There's no peeing section, no peeing section in the pool. The air is the air. We don't get it back. We don't get lungs back. Nowadays, I think, we made the decision based on public health, and it was a good decision. We currently have laws against controlling the use of alcohol in public. I think this is a good application to put in terms of smoking weed. I can't imagine, and none of us can imagine anymore, sitting at Mancini's and eating a steak with a side of smoke. And I think the owners of Mancini's would tell you that as well. This is a good thing. You're going to face a lot of pressure in the future, but being slightly conservative here at the beginning is a good way to do it. Going from back in the 60s, a friend of mine went to prison for 10 years for smoking a joint in public, and now it's legal. In the words of Jerry Garcia, what a long, strange trip this has been. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thune, and thank you for your leadership on smoke-free establishments in our city. I know that was rough at the time, and we appreciate your leadership.
Hi, my name is Bridget Pinder. I am the owner of Grounded Gardens Cannabis Company and Cannabis Farm. We have a manufacturer at 265 West 7th Street, Suite 200 and 300, and we recently opened a dispensary and lounge at 263 West 7th Street in St. Paul. Can I ask a quick question so I can clarify something on is this just for parks, or is this for all public places in St. Paul?
For parks.
This is just for parks? Okay. Because I came in under the understanding that it was for all public places in St. Paul, so it's just for parks. That's clarified in the because it was very vague, the statement.
Yeah, I'm trying to get your timer.
Sorry.
Did you want to answer that?
The current form of the ordinance regulates parks and within 25 feet of employment, but it allows exception of employment business, but allows exceptions for a property owner to designate and sign a smoking area, and it allows the parks director to designate a smoking area within parks.
Okay, so at our location on West 7th Street, we have an area up front. We're right next to Parlor. Parlor has tables out front where people can come out and eat their food. We have down the road set up tables where people can come and hang out and smoke cannabis, and it's a safe space for people to come and be. And so at my location, would they be able to sit and hang out and partake in the cannabis smoking is one of my questions.
Can you, I want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, but we're not going to go back and forth here. So the designation that you're referring to is that a property owner can designate a smoking area. We're talking about primarily.
But it's on a public street is what I'm asking. So I'm on West 7th Street.
Right. Okay. Streets and sidewalks were initially included. They are not.
Okay. So streets and sidewalks have been taken out. So I was coming here wanting to talk about people that live in housing that are no longer able to go out on the streets and sidewalks, but that's been cleared up. So people that live in housing that they can't smoke in, they're able to then go down on the street and smoke out on the sidewalks. That's correct? Okay. So so that takes out a lot of what I had written down. That's why I just wanted to ask the question, so I didn't go into a bunch of stuff. Yeah, so what we're asking at Grounded Gardens is that we just follow the Indoor Air Act that Minnesota has put into place, and that we abide by that because we think that we've done a good job writing that. So thank you, guys.
Great. It's great when people come up to testify and we already got it. Like, we took care of that business, so appreciate your testimony and input on this topic. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. My name's Molly Henderson. I'm a St. Paul native, and I live in St. Paul. I stand before you today to express my concerns about the proposal to ban cannabis use in public spaces. While it is essential to address the concerns of public safety and order, we must also consider the critical aspects of medical access for patients who rely on cannabis as a form of treatment. Cannabis has been recognized globally for its therapeutic potential, offering relief to individuals suffering from various conditions such as chronic pain, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, and even cancer. For many of these patients, accessing medical cannabis is a lifeline, providing them with much-needed relief and improved quality of life. Implementing a blanket ban on cannabis in public spaces would inadvertently hinder these patients' ability to manage their conditions effectively. They may find themselves in a position where they have no private space to consume their medicine, leading to unnecessary suffering and discomfort. This is not the compassionate and understanding approach that our city must adopt. Moreover, it's crucial that we consider the larger issue of stigma surrounding cannabis use. Cannabis, despite its medical benefits, has been stigmatized for decades. By enacting a ban on public cannabis use, we are perpetuating the stigma and sending a message that those who rely on this medicine are not welcome or understood in our community. Breaking down the stigma is essential for well-being of our citizens and the development of a more inclusive and understanding society. Instead of a ban, we should work towards education and awareness campaigns to inform the public about the legitimate medical uses of cannabis and the importance of supporting patients who depend on it. In conclusion, while it is crucial to maintain order in our city, we must not forget the needs of our fellow citizens who rely on medical cannabis for their well-being. A complete ban on public cannabis use not only hinders patients' access, but also perpetuates the harm